In today's class, we like to apply our learning of the relationship among the cost, volume, and profit. And we will go through some of the exercise problems from the text by Garrison, Noren, and Brewer. The problems we like to focus on today is exercise number 5.7. Exercise number 5.10 and exercise number 5.13. So let's move to exercise number 5.7 and we'll discuss first. What is the problem about? Stepman Corporation has a single product. So you understand it is a simple problem as long as it has a single product. And this company's single product selling price is $200 and the variable expense is $150 per unit. The company's monthly fixed expense is $75,000. So this is the information given. What are the requirements? We are required to find out this calculation. Calculate the unit sales needed to attain a target profit of 9,000. This is number one requirement. And number two requirement is calculate the dollar sales needed to attain a target profit of $10,000. So similar kind of problem, but the target profit is different. And the way of your calculation will be a little bit different for the requirement. Here we need to find out the unit sales. Here we need to find out the dollar sales. So first thing first, we like to see that what we need to do in the unit sales problem, okay? So you probably can recall that we developed an equation from our understanding that if we write profit equals to the unit contribution margin, and if we multiply this total number of units or Q indicated, the Q indicates the number of units, and it indicates the amount of total contribution margin we have for covering the fixed expenses. So if we have contribution margin which exceeds the fixed expenses, we understand that there will be some profit. Otherwise, the profit will not be there. So here we can give the input of profit of 9,000 because we are requiring 9,000 profit here. And from the information given, we see that the contribution margin, unit contribution margin is the difference between the selling price 2,000 and the variable expense of 150. So 200 minus 150. And the Q is our question. We need to find out this. That's why the Q is here as it is. And the fixed expenses of 75,000 is here. So we can write the 75,000. And I am not interested to show you the way that how can you find out Q, but I like to ask you what should be the Q from your calculation. Write your responses in the chat box. The good responses are coming. 1,680 units. That is good. That you can apply your learning of business mathematics to solve the linear equation. Yeah, so that is the fulfillment of the requirement one that we have. We need to have 1,600 unit sales to attain a profit of $9,000. Now, second thing we like to know for this amount of target profit, what amount of dollar sales is needed. So we can use the similar kind of equation by, but we need to change we need to change some portion. But here I like to show you that what we have learned in the formula method. This one we solved in the first case is like the equation method. But now I like to show you that how can I solve the problem using the formula method. So you probably can recall that we wrote this kind of formula when we learned that if we have a fixed expense here and contribution margin ratio here, we can find out the break-even sales in dollar. Okay, dollar sales, we can find out this. But here you see, we are not interested to get the break-even sales, but we want to get a sales which will help us to achieve a target profit of 10,000. So we have a target profit requirement. So let me write it as target profit. I showed you that what is the logic that why we are adding target profit in the same equation. Okay. So we know that our fixed expense is same as $75,000, and our target profit is now $10,000 here. And how can I find out the contribution margin ratio? So we know that if we subtract the variable expense of 150 from 200, we have a contribution each unit 50. So if we divide this contribution margin per unit by the sales price of 200 per unit, we get the contribution margin. Is it to be 25 or 25%? What do you think? Or something different? You have confirmed that it is to be 25%. So let me write it in this way. So how much dollar sales is needed for the target profit of $10,000? Your calculator should give you $340,000 sales. $340,000 sales. So we have fulfilled two requirements. So let's check that whether we have done it properly. In first problem, we found it is 1,680. In second requirement, we solved it for $340,000. Okay. So these are some solutions you see on the screen, what we already have solved. Is there any difference between what we solved and what is here? There is no difference. We solved it properly. Okay. So let's proceed with another problem, exercise number 510. Okay, we'll work on exercise number 510. Shamrock Products markets to video games, running and skiing. A contribution format income statement for a recent month for the two games appears below. This is exercise number 510. You'll see the numbers presented here a little bit different from the numbers you see on your text because of the changes in addition. That is not a big issue, but overall the problems are similar as long as the exercise numbers are same. Okay, so the breakdown of two games have been given. Breakdown has been given in terms of contribution format income statement, and total amount is also given. We know that in contribution format income statement, variable expense comes after sales, then we have a contribution margin, then we have fixed expenses, then we have net operating income. We are familiar with this kind of presentation, right? So what is the requirement here? Compute the overall contribution margin ratio for the company. Overall, not the individual product contribution margin. So we have the overall number here. So how can I find out the overall contribution margin ratio for the company, right? So we have overall contribution margin of how much from this table. How much, not the percentage. I'm asking for how much. 88,000. So we need to find out the overall contribution margin first, and we need to find out then what is the contribution margin ratio. Okay, so let's take this screen for the first requirement. We need the contribution margin ratio, so we can find out it in this way. Contribution margin ratio should be equal to the overall contribution, which you have identified as 88,000. And we know that we can get the contribution margin ratio if we express the contribution margin in terms of the sales. So which sales I should take, this one, or this one? I should take the 160,000 because we are asked to measure the overall contribution, not the individual. So let me take the overall sales of 160,000. So you get the contribution margin ratio of how much? You get an overall contribution margin ratio of 55%. That's good. The magnitude is significant that you are getting 55% contribution margin, and you are spending only 45% for covering the variable expenses. Now, the second requirement, compute the overall break-even point for the company in dollar sales. Overall break-even point for the company in dollar sales. So if you recall the formula we used in the previous problem for getting the break-even dollar sales, we can recall that number 2, we need to find out the overall break-even sales in dollar. Note that I am writing some notations for my convenience and for saving time in the class, and do not go for applying this in your exam. You need to write that what is this and what is this and what is this. You need to define all of this clearly, okay? Otherwise, you cannot score the full marks, okay? You see, we wrote that in numerator, we need to write the fixed expenses, and here we need to, in denominator, we need to write the contribution margin per unit or the contribution margin ratio for getting the break-even sales dollar. This is the question to you. Contribution margin ratio. That is good that you can recall that what we have learned. So contribution margin ratio, let me write it in this way. Fixed expenses is of how much overall? Not here, yeah. The fixed expenses overall is 41,250. 41,250. And the contribution margin ratio we solved here, it is 0.55. And so break-even sales dollar is how much? Your calculator should yield the $75,000. $75,000. Now, so we have solved the requirement of 2. Now, number 3, verify the overall break-even point for the company by constructing a contribution format income statement showing the appropriate levels of sales for 2 products. What has been asked in this long question? The purpose is to verify the break-even point. We have solved the break-even point in terms of dollar sales. So in this problem, it is asked that allocate the break-even dollar sales in these 2 products, running and skying. And then check that if we have the sales of this amount of break-even sales, do we have any net operating income? What do you think? If we have the break-even point sales, will we have any positive net operating income? What do you expect in the break-even point sales? You expect no positive net operating income. Again, you expect no negative net operating income. You expect simply 0 net operating income. Let's verify it together. Okay. First of all, we like to check that out of the 160,000 actual sales dollar, how much sales is coming from running video game and how much sales is coming from a skying video game. Find out the proportion of the contribution of sales by each product. Find out this. Running video game is contributing how much of sales, total sales, and a skying video game is contributing how much of total sales? 75% and 25%, beautiful numbers, I must say. There is no fraction, there is no decimal. Okay, let me write it here. 75% running video game, skying is contributing 25%. Okay, so we can use this number for our requirement 3. So how can we use the number? Because we have to allocate this $75,000 sales to 2 video games. One is running and another one is skying, in terms of 75% and 25% ratio. So let me write a 3rd column for total. So let me write the sales in terms of dollar. You see how much sales in total I can allocate for break even. It should be 75,000. Now for running, what should be the break even sales, and for skying, what should be the break even sales? Responses are coming. Let me wait for some other responses. Okay, good. I got enough responses. So let me write what you have written in response. You are saying that for running video games, the break-even sales should be 56,250. And for Skyeng video games, the break-even sales should be 18,750. Note that what we have done here, we have allocated the break-even sales dollar into the running and Skyeng based on the existing sales contribution ratio. Now, what is the second line item? Second line item is the variable expenses. So we do not have adequate information whether variable expenses has changed or not, but we know that there is a relation between the variable expense and the sales, which is known as variable expense ratio. Can you help me to find out what is the variable expense ratio for running video game and what is the variable expense ratio for the Skyeng video game? You probably can recall we talked about the variable expense ratio. The responses are coming. I will take your responses, but I'm waiting for some other. Okay, let me check that what you have written. You are saying that 46% for running and for 43% for Skyeng video game. So are you rounding it into two decimals? I like to get at least one digit after. Okay, 45.83. I see varying responses. The responses are not kind of uniform. 45.83. Is it for running? Yeah. So let me write it here. 45.83. And for Skyeng, you are saying that it is 42.5. Okay, we can now apply this. Here, yeah. We are saying for here, it is 45.83 variable expense. Variable expense ratio here, it is 45.83. And for Skyeng, it is 42.5%. 42.5% variable expense ratio. Okay, now apply this percentage for getting the variable expense here and the variable expenses here. What shall be the dollar variable expenses for running video games and for Skyeng video games? Apply the percentage 45.83% on the 56,250 and 42.5% on 18,750. I see responses are coming. Okay. 25,779, 25,779 for running, and 7,968 for skying. And you are saying the total amount should be 33,748. 33,748. So we see that it is the contribution margin now. Someone is saying that it is 25,780 and 7,969 for skying. Probably he or she is doing a precise calculation. That's why the number is like this. I took the round of in one digit. You can take two more digits for making it more precise, or three more digits after decimal. Okay, you check it to get the net operating income 0. So if we round this number, we'll see that there will be some rounding error in the final line item of net operating income. Okay, what should be the contribution margin here for running? 30,000 something. 30,470, and for skying it should be 10,000 something. 10,781, and in total it should be 41,000. You are writing 41,000 something. What should you say? 41,252. Then any other response? From here, we see that it is to be 252. But you see that if we sum up, it should be 1 here. Okay, whatever these are happening for the rounding issues. So we have the fixed expenses in total. And if we write, you can check that our fixed expenses was 41,250. Here you can check it, 41,250. So if we write the 41,250, we see our net operating income is close to 0, or you can say 2. So you see net operating income is supposed to be 0 here. So this 2 or this 1, if it arises other than 0, it should be linked to some of the rounding you have made earlier. Okay, so what can you do for making this number beautiful? I mean, when it is 0, in that case, the number will be beautiful. So how can you make this? So you can look at your calculator, that what is the total number here, or what is the total total number here, and apply that number for calculating the variable expense. And when you will write the variable expense ratio is this percentage, make a rounding of 2 digit at least after the decimal. Okay, I mean the 10th digit. It is the unit digit, it is the 10th digit. round it up to 10 digit. When you are expressing the variable expense ratio is this percentage, okay? But when you apply the calculation, apply the number which you are getting from your calculator. So this is the way that how can you come up with a beautiful number of 0 for the break-even net operating income. So I hope you will not spend much time on this. This is not a significant thing at all. Okay, so let's see that we have done it properly. This is the requirement one. In requirement one, we solved the overall contribution margin ratio. And in requirement 2, we solved the overall break-even of $75,000. And in requirement 3, we have allocated. Before allocation, we saw that how much of the sales is coming from running and skying in the existing sales volume. Then after finding out the 75% and 25%, we have applied this percentage into our sales break-even of 75,000. We applied 75% on 75,000 to get the break-even sales for running and for similarly for skying. Then we have applied the variable expense relationship from the existing information to apply the variable expense number. And after applying the variable expenses, we get the contribution margin in this way. Then when we subtract the contribution margin of, fixed expense of 41,250 from the total contribution margin, we get the net operating income 0. So this is the evidence that in break-even sales, we have the net operating income of 0. Someone is asking, is it okay to leave the rounding error as it is? Would that be a problem? It is not a problem at all, but you probably expect the break-even net operating income 0 number or 0. Okay, so to make it 0 or to make it as expected 0, you can do the approach what I shared with you. It is not a problem. I do not know what is the definition of problem to you. Okay, so what we like to do now, we like to look at another problem now, exercise number 513, because that I find this problem comprehensive, and we talked about it in the third part of our lecture on the cost volume profit relationship. Okay, exercise number 513. This is a comprehensive problem. Miller Company's contribution format income statement for the most recent month is shown below. You are crowding in the chat box with the insignificant issue whether you will write 2, 0, these things. I expect the 0 there, but do all the process to make it 0 really, and come to the 0 honestly. And if it actually from the calculator it is I mean it is a 2 or 3 or 5, but forcefully you have made it 0, that will be a problem. So whatever the way you follow or if you keep it as it is 2, 3 and on bracket you write that this is causing due to the rounding error, in that case it will be acceptable. But if you do not write that due to the rounding error it is causing, or you have not made the or you have written simply 0, but from the calculation it shows that it is probably 3 or 2 different from 0, in that case that would not be honest process. Okay, so you need to be honest there and do the follow the approach what I mentioned earlier, that how can you come up with 0, and do that for getting 0. And obviously you would expect that 0 will be beautiful number here. Okay, again This is not a significant issue to spend time, and you have understood what I wanted to say. Okay, 513 exercise number 513. Miller Company's contribution format income statement for the most recent month is shown below. Sales of 25,000 units, variable expenses for 25,000 units, then the contribution margin coming from the 25,000 units, fixed expenses of $85,000, net operating income of $115,000. Again, the information are presented in per unit basis. And what I would say that when the total information is given, in terms of total in any problem, when you are solving the problem, please create a separate column. And this is kind of convention, create a separate column to express the number in per unit basis when you are solving or when you are writing the contribution or when you are using the contribution format income statement to get your solution or to get the requirement fulfilled. Okay, so have you got it? Beside your total column, write a per unit column. This is a convention of preparing the contribution format income statement. You probably can recall I mentioned about this approach in lecture 2 or 3 that where I mentioned that fixed expenses often sometimes expressed in per unit. So this is the area where the fixed expenses sometimes expressed in per unit for the making decision, but fixed expenses is not a per unit basis and it might be misleading. But what you'll do again, I am iterating that when you use the contribution format income statement for solution, please write a separate column or insert a separate column on the right to express the number in terms of per unit, what is happening in terms of per unit basis. Okay, next, what are the requirements? Note that they have mentioned that consider each case independently. So what does it indicate? The information given in 1 should not be applicable in the requirement 2, and the information given in requirement 2 will not be applicable in requirement 1. So each of these cases are different. Okay, so requirement 1, what is the revised net operating income if unit sales increases by 20%? If unit sales increases by 20%, what will be the revised net operating income? Okay. So what can you do? You can prepare a separate contribution format income statement to understand that what is happening. So if we create a separate column here, for the sake of time, I am using this instead of creating a separate contribution format income statement because I will use the same information here. So it is for the number 1 case or number 1 requirement. So sales will go up by 20%. So if the existing sales is 25,000, what will be the sales if it goes up by 25%? Sorry, 20%. What do you expect? The units of sales after 20% increase. You see that it is 30,000. Yeah, 5,000 is 20% of 25,000. So if you add up 5,000 with the 25,000, you should get 30,000. Okay, now variable expense ratio again will be useful here. You see that variable expenses, there has been no new information regarding the variable expenses, so we apply the existing relationship. So find out the variable expense ratio from the information given, either by expressing 10/18 or 250,000 over 450,000. You should get a percentage. How much? Is it 21.6%? 10 over 18? I believe the number should be bigger, as it is, 55.56%, 55%. Okay. So instead of, okay, you have got a number in your calculator, which starts with 55.5 something. So apply that number on the $30,000 sales to get the variable expense applicable for this. Okay, apply the 55.5 or 6% on the 30,000 to get the variable expenses. How much it is? Okay, there's a mistake that 30,000 is units. We need to express the number in terms of dollar sales. 30,000 is unit. So let me write the unit here. 30,000 is the unit sales. So for 30,000 unit sales, what is the per unit price? You see 450,000 divided by 250,000, or the $18 per unit price. So multiply the 30,000 with $18 per unit to get the sales value here. 30,000, what I wrote earlier, is not a sales value, rather it was a sales unit. I hope you got it, what I mentioned. Yeah. So it should be 540,000 on the sales value, sales value. And now apply this percentage, 55.56% on this sales to get the variable expense amount. Okay, so you are applying the total total value you are getting in the calculator, or you are applying the 55.56% for getting the variable expense of 300,024. You apply the 55.56%. Okay, so I was saying to apply the total number you are getting for the variable expense ratio in the calculator. It can be 9-digit, it can be 8-digit. Okay, so if you apply, you are supposed to get a round number like 300,000, the variable expense. So you see, it is to be 240,000 if we subtract the variable expense from the sales, we get the contribution margin. Alternatively, you can eventually do, as you have the unit sales 30,000 and you have the variable expense per unit $10, you can apply 30,000 multiplied by 10 to get the 300,000 variable expense. Okay, so there is no problem, you can use this, and you see that we have no changes in the fixed expenses. It should be again 85,000, this amount. So if we have this 85,000, and what should be the now revised net operating income? $155,000. So you see that compared to the original case where we have the net operating income of 115,000, we have now how much increased net operating income? Around, no, exactly 40,000. 40,000. Yeah. So the number one case is good for us. If we can increase the unit sales by 20%, it will give us 40,000 more net operating income. Yeah. Okay. Now, requirement 2. What is the revised net operating income if the, let me write the numbers here, that what we have got. We have got it is 155,000. Okay, number 2. What is the revised net operating income if the selling price decreases by $2 per unit and the number of units sold increases by 15%? Right? So what it is asking for sensitivity analysis or scenario analysis. What do you think? Write your response in the chat box so that I can understand that you know that what kind of situation you are facing, sensitivity analysis or scenario analysis based on the requirement 2 scenario. Very good. Because you are dealing with changes of 2 variables. One is the selling price, another one is the number of units sold. Okay. Selling price decreases by $2 per unit and the number of units sold increases by 15%. Now, if the number of unit sales increases by 15%, what will be the revised units of sales for the increase of 15% from the 25,000 units? The responses are coming. 28,750. Yeah. So now we like to deal with the case of 28,750 unit. Okay. This is the revised unit for the requirement 2. It is asking the selling price will not remain same with the previous case, rather selling price will decrease by $2 per unit. So if selling price decreases by $2 per unit, what will be the revised selling price? It is 18, it is 16, or it is 20? It is $16 per unit. Let me write the per unit number here. Now, what will be the sales amount in terms of dollar if we have the 28,750 sales and the $16 sales price per unit? We have the sales value of for $60,000. Yeah, and there has been no information given about the variable expense. So we assume that variable expense is same as before, $10. So how can I find out the variable expense? Should it be simply to 87,500? Is it okay? Or do you expect any changes in variable expense for the changes in selling price? Yeah, it is okay. You might expect that selling price is decreased for the usage of cheaper material, but as long as there is no additional information, you assume that variable expense will not change. It will be as before. So what will be the contribution margin? The difference between the sales and the variable expense? It should be 172,500. Okay. Now, per unit contribution margin will be same or it will change? What do you think? Before telling me the number, I'm asking that it will change. Okay, it will be higher number compared to the previous $8 per unit, or it will be a lower number? it will be a lower number because we are getting less price per unit from the sales. Okay, so that amount will be $6 per unit. $6 per unit. Now we have the fixed expenses. So fixed expenses is how much? Fixed expenses is same as before, 85,000. There is no changes. So what will be the net operating income, revised net operating income? Revised net operating income should be something 80 above, 87,500. So that is the revised net operating income in our requirement 2 case. Okay, number 3. What is the revised net operating income if the selling price increases by $2 per unit, fixed expenses increases by 15,000, and the number of units sold decreases by 4%? So many things are happening at a time. So many things. So again, this is a sensitivity case or scenario case. Again, it is a different scenario. Okay, now number 3 requirement, we see that our selling price will increase by $2 per unit. Fixed expense will go up by $15,000. Number of units sold decreases by 4%. So now we are experiencing the decrease of sales unit by 4%. So if we have 4% less units of sales, what will be the sales unit now from the base number 25,000? Out of the 25,000 units, if we have reduction of 4%, we will have sales of 24,000 units. Okay, so we are now dealing with this case. So what will be the sales value if we have the selling price, which is a higher number now compared to the previous one, $18. Now it is $20 per unit. So what we need to do, we need to multiply 24,000 by 20 to get the total sales value for 80,000. Okay. Now, do we have any information for variable expenses changes? We do not have. So we assume that it is as before the variable expenses. So for 24,000 units, the variable expenses in total will be 24,000 multiplied by 10. So it should be 240,000. So we see that our contribution margin will be the difference between these two, which is expected to be the same amount of variable expense as it is 50% here variable expense ratio in this case. 10 over 20 is 50%. Okay, so it is also to be 10. So again, the fixed expenses, it is no longer same as before. There's an information that it will go up by $15,000. So now the revised fixed expenses will be 100,000. So it is to be 140,000. It is to be 140,000. So you see that revised net operating income is now 140,000. So requirement 3, if you observe that selling price increased by $2 per unit, this is a good thing. Fixed expense increased by 15,000. This is not a good thing. Number of units sold decreases by 4%. It is not also a good thing. But amidst of the two bad things and one good thing, we see that still our net operating income is above the base case of $115,000. Number 4, what is the revised net operating income? If the selling price per unit increases by 10%, variable expenses increases by 80 cents per unit, and the number of units sold decreases by 8%. So again, so many things are happening at a time simultaneously. First of all, we like to see whether there has been any changes in the total units of sales. We see it is asking that number of units sales will go down by 8%. So previously you are solving the problem if the number of units go down by 4%, and you mentioned that it was 1,000 units less. Now, if it is 8%, it is 2,000 unit less from the 25,000. So it is a 23,000 units case. Okay. So let's solve for the 23,000 case, unit sales case, and we are given that selling price per unit will go up by 10%. So out of the $18, if we have the increase of 10%, it is to be 110% of 18. So 110% of 18 should be 19.2. Sorry, it is to be 19.8. 100, 10% of the 18. Okay, so it will go up by 1.8%. Lopa, you have written it correctly, that it will go up by $1.8 from the 18. So it will be 19.8 per unit. So if we multiply 23,000 unit sales by the revised selling price of $19.8 per unit, we'll get how much? Sales of 45,400. 455,400. So this is our total unit sales. And our variable expenses, is there any information that variable expense? Yeah, variable expense will be disturbed. It will go up by 80 cents per unit. So we have now $10 per unit. Now it will go up by 80 cents. So it will be 10.8 or 10.08 or 9.2. It will be 10.8. Okay. So, okay, the variable expenses is $10.8 per unit, the revised one. And what will be the total variable expenses now? 248,400. You are advancing first. I'm advancing slowly. Okay. So what will be the contribution margin? The difference between this and this, $207,000 contribution margin. And in terms of per unit, it is to be 9.0, 9.8. No, it is to be 9. Okay. Now, is there any changes in the fixed expense? We see in the number 4 requirement, there has been no changes in the fixed expenses. We see, yeah, it is to be as before 85,000. So the difference between this is $122,000. You see, the net operating income is $122,000. So you see, so many things are happening in 4 requirements or 4 independent cases. But in which case we have the lowest net operating income? The base case or any case among the 4 cases we discussed? Number 2. But you see, in all cases, we are far from our break-even point. So as long as we are far from break-even point or break-even sales, probably we are far from our break-even sales. That's why our net operating income is far from the $0. So what do you think? We have a adequate margin of safety in all of these 4 cases, or we are in a riskier condition in either of these 4 cases? You see that net operating income is much different from 0. Here it is up by 155,000. Here it is by 87,500. They're much different from the break-even net operating income of 0. So you expect that we have adequate margin of safety. Good. So on that note, we like to see that whether we have solved it properly. For the first requirement is solved in this way. We get the 155,000 net operating income, and for the requirement 2 we get 87,500, and for requirement 3 we get the $140,000 net operating income, and the final requirement we get the 120,000 net operating income. So this is all about the 3 exercises we wanted to solve together in today's class, and we are at the closing 10 minutes.